This is the case study of Alice, who has multiple sclerosis, and it's recorded by Kelsey Hannon, Kelsey Garoni, Jamie Crane, Francesca Cox, and Carla Quinones. So to begin, we're going to start with occupations for Alice. So Alice is a 51-year-old female. She has family around her, which would include her ex-husband, but she also has 2 daughters that live out of state, and she will talk to them on the phone a few times. And she does live in a 2-story house in a rural location with the master bed and bath on the 2nd story. Her occupational history includes being a middle school teacher, but she has been retired for 2 years now, and she has a small garden in her backyard. She was diagnosed at 18 years ago with recent concerns voiced by her ex-husband and PCP. They have resulted in an OT evaluation in her home. The affected occupations for Alice, as far as ADLs, include functional mobility, bathing, and dressing. Her IADLs that are affected include home management, meal preparation and cleanup, and shopping, as well as sleep. The occupation of sleep lies in our domain for occupational therapy, so we will be addressing sleep because she is taking naps for several hours in the afternoons and is easily fatigued. So knowing her sleep patterns would help us implement strategies for improved sleep. Her priority occupations for intervention include walk through a standard dinner routine with her. So that would include meal preparation and eating to identify the areas of concern to increase Alice's awareness and plan the intervention accordingly. ADLs would be addressed in order of her daily routine and greatest safety concern. For her performance patterns, we're going to first begin with affected routines. So her affected routines include her morning ADL routine. Now this takes her about 50 minutes each morning to get ready, and she is fatigued by the time she is done. Her daily routine, she is retired from work, and we do see that in her case study she is unable to finish household chores. Her roles, the affected roles, include mother, ex-wife, homemaker, teacher, and gardener. Addressing roles and intervention plan will incorporate techniques to reduce fatigue so that Alice can maintain a level of independence. Will also help Alice find volunteer opportunities working with children because she misses her previous role as a middle school teacher. In regards to fatigue, the effects that fatigue has on Alice includes leaving tasks unfinished. She falls asleep for hours in the middle of the day and struggles to get ready in the morning. So the OT recommendations would include task simplification, education in energy conservation techniques, and sleep regulation.
In regard to Alice's performance skills, we'll look at the skills that are impeding her occupation first. For motor skills, that would be ambulates, endures, paces, and coordinates. For process skills, it'd be initiates, sequences, continues, and accommodates. And for social interaction skills, questions, and disagrees. For her supporting performance skills, that would be reaches, moves, stabilizes, and calibrates for motor skills. Process skills, chooses, attends, paces, locates, and uses. And social interaction skills would be produces speech. So looking at our recommendations to address some of Alice's concerns that she has voiced about specific activities, for bathing, we would recommend installation of grab bars for added stability, a no-slip mat in the shower, and a shower chair and shower head with a hose. These would all ease the demand on Alice for bathing and make the activity safer for her. For dressing, we would recommend a stool or a chair in the bedroom and bathroom to use while dressing to decrease energy expenditure and offer a place to rest if she feels fatigued. Adaptive equipment to use would be a button hook and sock aid to overcome her difficulties with gross and fine motor coordination so that she can continue to dress as she wishes. She said that she likes to dress nicely, and so we want to help her maintain that independence and help her feel good about how she's looking. For meal preparation, we suggest meal-ready kits for the days that Alice is exceptionally fatigued at the end of the day, and they're convenient and low cost. And they can be purchased at H-E-B for about $5. They contain healthy ingredients, all packaged together in one container, and only take about 10 minutes to heat in the oven. Alice really misses gardening, and to help her resume this hobby, we would suggest that she could pot small, low-maintenance plants or flowers while she's sitting at the table. This would require less energy, and she could do it inside with the air conditioning, and the upkeep for the plants could be done. The upkeep for the plants would be minimal, and she can do this activity while watching a gardening show to create an ambiance and remind herself of how she used to feel when she was gardening. For reading the newspaper, to keep up with the news, Alice could watch the news on television or listen to it on the radio so that she doesn't have to hold the newspaper up. Her current safety issues include poor dynamic standing balance, fair static standing balance, and precarious transfers, which make functional mobility around her home a safety concern. She reports unsafe methods of transferring into and out of the shower and will not report how she manages the stairs with her laundry and crutches. She has cognitive deficits in working memory and planning, which could lead to mishaps while cooking and cleaning, such as leaving appliances on or executing her activities in an unsafe way due to lack of planning. And her poor coordination worsens with fatigue, which suggests a greater likelihood of accidents throughout the day as Alice completes her activities. To help prevent injuries, we would educate Alice on the safety hazards of her current routine so that her current routines that could lead to accidents and falls, and emphasize that preventing injury will allow her to continue functioning as independently as possible. We would help Alice set up her home to ensure that her environment and methods are safe as she completes her daily activities.
Okay, so now I'm just going to go over the client factors. We're going to start off with values and beliefs. So the OP stated Alice is a strong, independent woman. She values the ability to complete tasks independently with no modifications. So being independent is very important to Alice. It's important that we take a minimalistic and collaborative approach to engage her in therapy. In terms of OT intervention, we're going to look specifically at functional activities we can do for upper extremity strength and range of motion. So some of the things that could be included are household maintenance items such as vacuuming and dusting above her head level. In addition, folding laundry could be an intervention we use to make the activities functional. And in order to engage Alice, she could register to become a volunteer to stock books at the school library where she used to work. This will allow her to return to a familiar setting to address the upper extremity strength and range of motion needs. Frequent rest breaks could be recommended during her activities. As the OP stated, she fatigues quite quickly. Before I move on to some barriers of therapy, I do want to touch on the key body structures that would be impeding and supporting Alice. So impeding her would be the ones listed here. So her shoulders, elbow. We need to consider the decreased gross motor coordination she'll have in her upper extremities, as well as her hands, fingers, so her fine motor coordination, trunk muscles, sensation in the PNS, and then specific mental functions, which was also addressed in the OP, vestibular system, and cardiovascular. These were all shown by how quickly she fatigues while doing activities. In terms of supporting her head and neck muscles, wrist flexors, wrist extensors, digestive system, feet, hips, eyes, skin, and ears could all be supporting. Okay, to wrap up client factors, I want to talk about the anticipated barriers to therapy. So, as we stated before, she is an independent woman with a very strong personality. So, this might be a barrier to therapy because she might view intervention as a weakness or succumbing to her diagnosis. In addition, since Alice has had this diagnosis for 18 years, she may think she already has everything under control and she does not need an occupational therapist to come make adaptations or recommendations for her. And then finally, a brief self-report was given, and it showed she had difficulty with planning, organization, task monitoring, initiation, and working memory. All of these could impede in Alice's ability to understand why she would need occupational therapy services. Okay, so I'm going to now go over the context and environment. So, some adaptations that we have talked about already are a walker, and on each one of these there is a catalog pullout included just to see the various prices, to see how reasonable this could be for a client to purchase these. So a walker, which would help with her fatigue while she's having to walk around her house or maybe outdoors or various places like that. And then an adjustable reacher to reach things that are not in the proximal zone. And then a dressing stick and reacher, a zipper pull button loop. So these again are because dressing nice is important to Alice, so we want to keep up her ability to do that. A deluxe bath bench and grab bars, long-handled sponge. So in the OP, it was a concern that her ability to get in and out of the shower may be unsafe. So safety is a huge thing. So giving her these things would allow her to be more independent while taking a shower. And then a stool as well. Could help while she's dressing in the morning and just have somewhere to sit to rest if she does become fatigued. And then we also want to include some just free adaptations. So just organizing items in her house to be within reach. So this would prevent further fatigue from her having to reach overhead or her reach down low. So this could increase her independence. We could also do this by organizing clothing items for easy access. So once again, help address her fatigue to get ready in the morning. And then finally, a free adaptation would be utilize an outdoor weather type chair. So she might already own one of these, and she could put this in her shower if she does not have the money for a tub bench. Okay, and to wrap up context and environment, social supports she has would be her ex-husband. It states he lives close and he already helps with some home maintenance tasks, although she is a strong, independent woman, so that's something we should consider and maybe something we can use to help motivate her to take occupational therapy recommendations we give. Another social support would be her two daughters. So it says that she has phone calls with them and they can be used as emotional support. And then final context to consider are her age. She's middle to older age, social economic status, her marital status as stated. She has an ex-husband, and educational status and her retiree status.
For the category of situations, we have several different ones. The first one saying that you arrive at Alice's house for a scheduled visit. There is no answer at the door and it is locked as always. She has never missed a visit before. You are worried she may have fallen and is unable to get to the door. What would you do? So the answer for that is that we would first attempt to call Alice to see if she would answer her phone and maybe might be out of the house. If she did not answer her cell phone or home phone, to call then her emergency contact, which would likely be her ex-husband, to see if they know her whereabouts or could come over with a key to check on Alice. And if I could not find someone with a key to check on Alice, for example, the ex-husband or some neighbors, I would have to resort to more extreme measures to ensure her safety, possibly calling 911 or the police. Okay, so the second situation, you arrive at Alice's home and there is no answer when you knock, but the front door is unlocked. You go in and find Alice on the bathroom floor. She says she has pain in her shoulder and tells you to help her up. What would you do? You would first ask if she is hurt anywhere else, and then ask how she got on the bathroom floor to see really how she fell and where the impact might have been. If she passed out or hit her head while falling, the step would be to call 911, take precautions to ensure her safety, and ask her how long she's been on the floor. Help her come to a sitting position on the floor by helping her move her trunk while being careful of her shoulder, just not to exacerbate any damage or fracture she might have. Then look at her shoulder to inspect for any visible issues that could possibly alleviate. And then tell Alice we're going to sit on the floor for a moment to reorient herself and take it very slow in getting her back up. When she's ready to get up, get a chair for her to sit in and talk to her to ensure that she is oriented. And she did not have any further damage to her head. What could be done to improve Alice's safety during ambulation, and what could be instituted so she could be safer while she's alone? It's very important to address her pushing herself to do as much as possible before, quote, crashing for several hours on the couch. Specifically in regard to ambulation, she needs to take into account when she is too tired to safely ambulate in order to prevent her from having a fall or a slip and fall and hurting herself further. I would observe her ambulation around the house and make necessary environmental changes such as removal or repositioning of rugs and furniture, just rearranging the space. Also have her demonstrate ascending and descending the stairs in order to make necessary adjustments to the way she ambulates in the tight spaces. Having a ready place to sit nearby is also good so she can rest if the fatigue comes on more suddenly than expected. In another situation, Alex's ex-husband comes by one day during the session. He asks you what he can do to help Alice. She shouts out, "Nothing, I'm fine, this is my problem." What would you tell him? In the moment, I would thank him politely for offering and then have a private conversation with Alice about this later, mentioning his continued help in the house maintenance task for her and how she may appreciate his help in the future if need be. For example, if he has a key to her home and, she ever has an emergency situation where he's the emergency contact. Another one, you arrive at Alice's home and she is visibly shaken. She tells you that she fell about 45 minutes ago and just got herself up onto the kitchen chair. She tells you she feels fine and is just mad at herself for getting stuck between the counter and the kitchen table. She says that it could happen to anyone. What would you do as a therapist? Alice tells you not to mention the fall to the physical therapist or anyone else. What would you say? Their response in that situation would be, Alice, I'm sorry you have had such a rough time. I can only imagine your frustration right now, but as your occupational therapist, the best way I can serve you is to communicate with each of your providers so we can all provide the best treatment for you. Definitely be in empathetic mode, but also do what's necessary to ensure her safety. You arrive at Alice's house for a visit, and she calls you to come in. As you enter the kitchen, you find Alice carrying a chicken pot pie with one hand and trying to hold onto the counter for balance with the other. The food is obviously hot as the kitchen has a fresh baked aroma. How do you address the safety concern with Alice? List several ways and her possible reactions to your comments. So first, ask her to place the pot pie on the counter to quickly address the safety concern in regards to hot food, and allow her to have both hands free for balance and safe ambulation. After that, educating her on the importance of balance since she has poor dynamic standing balance with crutches. An option for safe ambulation and movement of the food would be to slide the dish along the counter on top of an oven mat while she alternates ambulating with her crutches using both upper extremities. Another option is utilizing a walker with a basket attached to place items in. A more creative option would be to have a rolling cart in front of her that she can gently push forward while alternating between ambulation. She may be resistant to change how she has always done this, so it's important to educate her on the possible consequences of unsafe functional mobility. Beginning with the option with the least amount of modifications will likely be more acceptable than changing her entire task by introducing multiple new objects in training. If after that she becomes defensive and tells you she is not a child, how would you deal with her feelings? First, it's important to validate a person's feelings, so her feelings of defensiveness and frustration, and to use the empathizing therapeutic mode to make her feel listened to. I would also check myself as well and be very cautious about not sounding patronizing or bossy. I would have a gentle conversation with her about the priority being her utmost safety while engaging in her daily activities, and the need to simply rearrange ways of doing them in order to promote her safety and independence. For discharge planning, which is going to be the last category, first, you have met all your goals with Alice and plan to discontinue OT treatment. However, because of the nature of her disease, you know that it is likely she will need further intervention. How would you explain to her the need to discontinue occupational therapy? I would start by reviewing our initial long-term goals for therapy that were set upon evaluation. Then review where she was when we began OT to highlight her progress and how far she has come, and emphasize to use the energy conservation and safe transfer techniques that were learned in OT in order to accommodate the progression of her MS. And finally, how can you be assured that Alice will get the OT interventions needed once that situation arises? Through coordination of care with Alice's primary care doctor, the OT will have established a reliable working relationship with them. I would encourage her primary care physician to write a new referral for OT when it becomes clear that she would benefit from further OT services.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about theory and evidence, and the frame of reference we have decided to use is a compensatory rehabilitation frame of reference because her diagnosis requires her to use compensatory and rehabilitative strategies and techniques to accomplish her daily tasks and routines while accounting for her fatigue related to her disease. The evidence that we found to support using this theory and frame of reference for Alice was one article in 2016 that concluded that occupation-focused OT interventions using rehabilitative strategies helped the participant achieve her overall goal of discharge to an independent level. Additionally, an article in 2014 stated that the study aimed to determine the unique contribution of OT in multidisciplinary rehab programs, and it concluded that the programs with a focus on functional performance and participation provide benefit for people with multiple sclerosis. Other evidence came from AJOT, where a meta-analysis was done on rehabilitation settings that provides moderate evidence from medium quality sources for outpatient rehab, inpatient rehab, and home-based programs. Strong evidence from high-quality resources for rehab programs in a variety of settings and fatigue management face-to-face, and improved ADL independence, functional status, and self-efficacy, as well as quality of life. Another article also came from AJOT, which was a meta-analysis on intervention, and this provided moderate evidence from medium-quality resources for memory training to address cognition, resistance training, and yoga for motor and praxis, and balance training, robot-based motor coordination, and CIMT for motor training. And lastly, strong evidence from high-quality sources for group CBT interventions to promote emotional regulation. The last article we have included is a crossover design study on energy conservation techniques, and this provided a decrease in total score and physical, cognitive, and psychosocial subscales on the fatigue impact scale. And lastly, decreased scores maintained for 8 weeks after completion of the program. So our interventions for Alice, first of all, we're going to explain to Alice what OT is in our own words. And basically, we're going to tell her that it helps people participate in their daily activities. And we'll tell her that OTs can help people work towards goals to complete things they need, want, or are expected to do in life. So, for example, you mentioned you were fatiguing quickly during the day. We would say, I'm sure this interferes with other things you need to do during the day. So in OT, we can work together to come up with ideas which would best fit your lifestyle to help you not fatigue so quickly. Does this make sense? Do you have any questions? We would also use a COPM so that we could assess her perception of her success in her activities. Because she is very strong and strong-willed, this would be a good assessment tool to use. And she also has strong opinions about her abilities and what she feels is most important to address. This assessment allows the client to have a major role in what will be addressed in therapy. This can be very motivating and fulfilling. Other functional assessments that can be used are the Barthel Index and the Box and Block Test of Manual Dexterity. Long-term goals include, so her overall intervention plan is just summed up in this box. The long-term goal number 1, patient will independently implement energy conservation techniques from completing multi-step cooking tasks after 4 weeks of receiving skilled OT services. Because Alice got fatigued and she often wouldn't finish preparing a meal. A short-term goal to reach her long-term goal of completing a cooking task can be patient will correctly demonstrate 2 energy conservation techniques during a simple cooking task completed with the therapist after receiving 1 week of skilled OT services. Some interventions to meet this goal is educate by listing energy conservation techniques, plan out cooking tasks and techniques that can be utilized, use techniques during every session, and implement techniques at home. Long-term goal number 2 is patient will increase activity tolerance to 30 minutes to increase overall safety and independence for self-care after 4 weeks of receiving skilled OT services. A short-term goal to meet the second long-term goal, patient will engage in gardening activities for 20 minutes with 1 rest break after 2 weeks of receiving skilled OT services. Interventions to meet this goal are standing at the sink to complete morning ADL routine, gardening, and cooking a meal standing, such as chopping vegetables, cutting meat, and heating water on the stove. Long-term goal number 3 is patient will implement safe tub transfer techniques independently after 2 weeks of receiving skilled OT services. This is especially important because Alice had her own way of transferring, which sounded very unsafe. And the short-term goal to meet this long-term goal is patient will demonstrate safe tub transfer techniques with standby assist and minimal verbal cueing after receiving 1 week of skilled OT services. And interventions to meet this long-term goal is sitting on chair while hitting a balloon to strengthen postural muscles, edge of bed transfers to chair, tub transfers in clinic with proper hand placement, and tub transfers at home.